Continuing with the structure tutorials, now we're back to working on the frames. First I want to show another way to create the guides on the skin for the frames. And I'm going to use this method instead of the one. From here forward I'm going to be using this method instead of the previous one when I go through the next steps. So the previous one, where we extruded these lines up and created intersections. From there, the best thing you would want to do is underneath the join button, if you press the arrow, there's the disassemble tool. Press the disassemble tool and break it all into individual pieces. And you might be able to go about the video the same way as from here on forward. But right now I am creating a bunch of individual lines from the sketch that we initially created, and I'm just going to project those onto the skin. The first one I made a different color. Might be, if you have a hard time keeping track of where you are on the lines, you might be interested in changing the color as you go. I'm just going to change the color on all of them now, just to make sure I got all of them, which looks like I did. And like I mentioned, we're going to project these onto the fuselage here with all the cutouts, including the one for the wing. And that gives us a multi-output in the tree. And we want to keep all the sub-elements, which is what that pop-up window was about. That concerns all the lines that are broken into different pieces because there's a cutout in the middle of it. For instance, over the windows, there's a cutout on each side, so you get a top piece and a bottom piece. So that is that method. Now, once you have make sure you had all the longerons done before this. Not that they necessarily need to be done using the method that I'm going to show, but I have them done. And here I'm creating a dimension constraint, which is going to be a reference to the stringer height. It's not even a reference. So when I mentioned in a previous video, we're gonna float the longerons inside, float the frames inside the longerons. So what we need to do is create parallel curves, which is the third button in that group of projection, intersection, and then parallel curve, of the frame guides, and we're offsetting it by the dimension that I just created for the height of the longeron, or the stiffener. Another option is to press that F of X button on the bottom next to the cursor with the question mark, and you can create a dimension in there called stringer height, or maybe frame float gap, and you could put in the dimension there. I like the way that I'm doing it better simply because if I change the sketch of the stringers, then it updates automatically, the frame float. So going through each of these, using parallel curve, not offset, and use the default plane, set the dimension here, or the constant equal to stringer height, click OK. And then we're going to go through each one. So it's a bit tedious. Now that I have them both in the same view on the tree here, it's a little easier. You just work down So here's the disassemble button I was talking about, that little black grid with a piece broken off. Break it into the domains. Domain means anything that's connected will stay as one piece, but if there's a gap, it'll break it into different pieces. So that's what you would want to do if you use the first method for creating the frame guides. You would just have a lot more of these to deal with. But I think you'll be able to work out the same way. So skipping forward to having all of those done, I'm going to use that f of x button I talked about to create the frame height, since we don't have a sketch that we're basing this off of. So I created a dimension. You can slow down the video there or watch it closely to figure out what I did. But I just created a real dimension called frame height, set it equal to a value of 2, what I hoped would be inches, but it doesn't work like that. It's to a lot of things, to some very big thing. So we need to convert it to centimeters and then meters. So there's 2 meters for whatever reason, even though it usually uses millimeters. So there we have our frame, 2 inches. And now we're going to fill in. You can't just fill in the little gap there, or the piece that you want. I'm going to finish making the frame heights before I fill stuff in. You'll notice I copied the text equals frame height 1. And now I just pasted each one. It's a lot quicker. Really rifle through them. Okay, so now all those are done. Make sure to keep them organized in the tree. Right now I have them as outer and inner in my tree. And now you can go fill in. You're going to have to use the outer contour. We'll have to come back later and cut the inside out. When it comes to these pieces that are broken, you have to obviously close the contour before you can fill it in. So we're going to use lines to close out. Press the radio button to go to length instead of infinite on the bottom there. And so just close out the frame. These ones we'll be able to fill in just the section we want and without having to cut any stuff out. We'll just have to click on more segments though, as opposed to just the one circle. So I'm going to go through and close all the open contours. I'll quickly go through that. Again, you'll notice I'm not going back and pressing the line button every time because I double clicked on it the first time. And that automatically opens up a new line definition window after you press OK or Enter. And I missed one. So now filling in all of these. Again, recommendation, press the fill thing twice. So you don't have to go back, click it every time. So now I've filled in everything that can be filled in except for this one that I missed, because there is a discontinuity in the points here for whatever reason. No idea why that one and none of the others. So what I'm going to do is to join, find the join button there, joining the guide on the skin. That way when I offset it, it will automatically be continuous. Got to delete those lines, which will in turn, okay. So I changed that projector, or that parallel curve, to the new joined curve instead of the original, and that allowed me not to have to delete everything. So that fixes that. Now to the cutting out portion of the show, where we click on the frame or the fill, and then click on the inner circle or ellipse. If you want to get pedantic, and that's easy enough. Badoom, badoom, badoom. Thank you very much. They gone. Okay. So cleaning up some of the lines there, starting to look nice. And now I'm going to create a formula for the frame thickness. I'm just going to do half the thickness, because we're going to extrude it in 2 directions. And I typed that in inches. We want to convert it to meters. Meters is centimeters over 100, not 1,000. So fix that. Now we'll use the thickness button, thick surface. Well, first I created that as full thickness, full frame thickness. And I want it to just be half because we're going to extrude it in both directions, the thickness of the surface. So we're going to say frame thickness half, and we're going to set this equal to that one. Add formula. Yeah, so just click on the add formula and divide frame thickness by 2. Now we're going to extrude the volume as a mirrored extent equal to frame thickness half. Copy that so you can just paste it in the future ones. Make sure to keep your tree organized. Since we got however many different frame components that we've created already. So now I'm pasting. Make sure you select the direction X component. And then paste the dimension equals frame thickness half. Then click mirrored extent. And I keep screwing it up. And there's the finished product. Well, not quite finished, but that's where we stand right now. We'll continue in the next video.